Welcome YouTube. In today's video, we're going to be going over how to win 2026. Now let me take a quick sip of this. All right, we're good. So, first what I want to kind of talk about is, the common issue that we always see, right? People saying, I want to change this about my health. I want to get better at this. I want to start making improvements. And what it usually comes down to is that the 99% of people, they want, their health to change. And for your health to change, you got to do things that are going to actually make a change, right? And it's not just doing it for a week, a couple weeks, a month. It's more of adopting this lifestyle that lasts your entire life. So, again, how are we going to win 2026? It really comes down just to doing the small things, right? And, we have to address this that, when you're first on this journey, you're wanting to make these big changes, you want to do big things to make those big changes happen faster. And you're going to run into multiple issues with that because you're trying to do it in a, fast pace. You're trying to get the results as soon as possible. Summer's just around the corner, and that is not how it works, guys. Like, I've been on this journey now for the last 2, almost 3 years. And what did it for me, honestly, was just instilling small principles. Understanding that I'm doing this for the long term. I'm doing this for the rest of my life. I'm not just eating healthy, taking care of my body just for vanity or just to look good, but I'm actually doing this for my family. I'm doing this to feel better. I'm doing this to, have the best sleep, the focus, the energy, so many things. And, it's adopting this lifestyle for your entire life. So if you're on this journey, you're trying to win this year, first focus on the foundation. So many people want to skip it. They think they're better. They think, they can do it without, doing the small things first. But it's the small things first that are actually going to take you to where you actually want to be. And, I always tell my clients this, but it's always small things matter, small things compound, right? And the compounding effect, guys, is by far the best, reward that you're gonna receive, right? It's, okay, what I did today, I'm gonna notice in the mirror tomorrow that I don't look different. I probably feel the same, maybe I'm a little sore, but, if I keep doing it consistently, you're stacking wins, right? You got Monday through Sunday, right? So you got Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, okay? So what you do today, which today is actually Monday, let's say I have a workout today, I'm doing my healthy stuff, I'm eating right. Let's say I do it today to Wednesday, maybe I take Thursday off, I have a rest day, I go Friday, Saturday, and then I take Saturday off. Boom. All of these days that you might not think are actually significant are actually compounding. Every single day it's adding up to this result, right? And so many people want to get from, the guy who's in shape, he looks good, he's flexing his muscles, to, people want to get here. But what they don't understand is that it takes, these compounding rules, these compounding days that, like I mentioned, don't seem like they're significant, but they are super significant, right? So, you got to focus on the compounding effect. And just to what I'm saying again, right? Small things matter and small things compound. Like, I can't tell you how important this actually is, right? Sometimes I get noticed like for being this weirdo, this guy who's, going on these walks, who's always kind of eating the same healthy foods. He never, eats the bad stuff. He's always consistent. He has his priorities. He has his, things that he holds him up to a higher standard. And, back to this rule again, small things compound and the small things matter. Everything from, what's hitting my skin to what am I inputting into my body, right? Right now I'm, under this blue light that typically I'm not under a lot, throughout the day. And if I am, I'm typically wearing, eye protection. If I'm, in an environment with lots of non-native EMFs, I'm wearing, EMF protection. And it's all these little things that add up. But I can tell you, these things are the things that most people don't think about. They think about just the workout, just the diet, the sleep, but there's multiple things that affect the body. So, implement this rule, small things matter, small things compound, and, do the small things that are going to actually take you to where you want to be. Not just the workout, not just, doing the eating, not just doing and eating, the right things, but actually focus on, different things and different tools you can use. Going back into, setting yourself up for the new year, something I'm always going to suggest is this transition that we all try to make, right? A lot of people try to go fast, full speed, and what you really want to do is make a what? Sustainable change. This sustainable change is going to take, maybe a month, 2 months, 3 months. It might take you half a year to slowly transition into this lifestyle. Right? I can tell you, if I'm always waking up at, let's say 10 o'clock, I'm eating out all the time, not cooking, I'm eating frozen meals, I'm, never working out, I'm never walking, let's say I have an office job, I'm sitting at home all the time, like going from there and then going from the guy who, you think is optimal, who's waking up at 3 a.m., 4 a.m., working out, coming home. Let's say he's doing an ice bath. He's eating his oatmeal, peanut butter, and then, you're trying to go from there to this lifestyle that what you think is healthy, but actually really isn't. You trying to make these big changes can sometimes be overwhelming. It can feel like it's a pain in the ass. But what's really going to do it is if you just make the small steps. Could you not? This is exactly what I did. It literally was this. I'm not even going to lie. So when it came to me and wanting to make a change, the first thing that I could never actually, be consistent with was taking care of my teeth. Growing up as a kid, I saw the dentist, whenever that happened, which was every couple years. I never took care of my teeth the best, and hence why I had to go to the dentist a lot. And, back to my point is that I got all my teeth done. I was, really focused on, dude, if I could just take care of my teeth next, in my next checkup in 6 months, they might be able to tell me Jackson, you have no cavities. So, I did that. I went back into my, daily routine of taking care of my teeth, flossing, brushing, maybe a mouth rinse. I started wearing mouth tape because, I had a lot of dry mouth going on. But anyways, that's where I found my consistency, was actually just taking care of my teeth. It sounds dumb, but like I said, small things matter and small things compound. So I kept doing those things, day in, day out. And eventually when I had my next checkup point, they told me I had no cavities. And you don't understand, I've never heard that in my entire life. So hearing that brought a lot of confidence. It really showed that all that work that I did, to take care of my teeth, which for a lot of you guys might sound simple, but for me, I didn't have any, kind of discipline or consistency in my life. So once I understood I could do that, I knew I could do other things, right? So I started, taking care of my health. I started learning, started educating. Then I started making small changes, right? One of the things I preach within my clients is go after meal walk, right? After you eat, I don't go, sit on the couch or, go sit in a chair and, just be on my phone. But I'm actually getting in some movement, which is going to help with multiple things, right? From a health standpoint, can stabilize your blood sugar, help speed up your metabolism, help you digest the food more. You're burning some calories, getting fresh air, the sun, and it's super beneficial. So, you start doing all these small things. You start making these small sustainable changes, and you start to gain confidence that you can do more. So you start adding more things onto your plate. You start working out. You start, taking your health more serious, you start doing other protocols. And then, in terms of your relationships, other things with life, like your business, your career, all of those things, right? You start to build trust. Even over the last few days, guys, like one of my biggest struggles is reading. And, I just bought this book, but started reading this book by Alex Hormozy, and, I hate reading. I used to suck at reading. I used to lie in high school about reading. So what am I going to do? I'm going to grab that book, start reading it more, and that's going to help me become a better reader. It's a matter about doing and being consistent. Like the game is easy. It's just a matter of doing is what's the biggest issue in today's society. And, in my hand right now, we got a creatine H&B with a pre-workout blend. So I'm kind of just sipping on it because I got a workout right after this. But to go back to, how to win 2026 is, make those sustainable changes, right? Make small, sustainable changes. Okay? So once you start making those, small sustainable changes, you can start to amp it up. You can start adding more things, right? So let's say once you gain confidence, you can just put add more workload, I guess. That's how I will say it. Boom. Okay. So once you start to add this more workload, right, all of our lives are different. I have a kid, I have a girlfriend, I have work, I have, another career I'm building outside of my work. I have so many things going on, and you have to ask yourself this question first is like, okay, if I'm trying to get bigger, like put on mass, like is this the right time to be spending more money, cooking, sleeping, more recovery, more training? Like, is this appropriate in my life right now? Do I have a lot of stress going on in my life right now? And if that's the case, right, maybe it's not the right time. Maybe you should focus just on more kind of cruising, chilling out. Maybe if you want to lose some weight, you have some belly fat, definitely would recommend that. Start fasting more, becoming more in tune with the body. But if you can take that load on to actually do this, then do it, right? So it's first understanding that. And then once you start, gaining confidence and adding more, workload to your daily plate, what does it for me is here's the thing is that, a lot of people tell you need motivation. A lot of people tell you need discipline. And that's correct, right? But when it comes to motivation, that's one of those things that I don't even need anymore. And if I do need some, I think about my why, and that's something, we all need to understand is, even this might even be the first step, but understand what is your why, right? And for me, it's multiple things, right? I want other people to be healthy. This is something I'm passionate about. I'm doing this not just for myself, but for my family, teaching them how to be a healthy example, as well as to my other relatives, my girlfriend's side, even to my own son that I just had 4 months ago, teaching him, how to eat the right things, how to take care of the body. So having your why is going to kind of fuel the fire. So let's say it's a day where I just had work. I worked 10 hours. I'm tired. I didn't get the best sleep the other night. And, I told myself I was going to have a workout. I ate all this food because I knew it was for the training. And, I'm sitting there just kind of, fighting between if I should do it. And then I think about, what's my why, right? And, it can fuel the fire for sure, depending on, what I'm thinking about, right? Should I quit today? Do I want to be successful? Like, this is what it takes. Like, me quitting today, isn't doing me no good. It's just taking me a step back. So thinking about those things alone is going to allow you to really become in tune with the character you're trying to build. So, understand your why, really dig deep. If you have to go in a room, into the mountains, into your car, really sit down and just hear yourself out. Avoid all the distractions and really just become in tune with yourself. Figure out what's your why. You can have multiple, and then, really feed that, on those days where you don't feel like doing something. So definitely would suggest figuring out your why. And then once things start to get better, you start to gain momentum, that's where you're really going to want to start, learning specific topics, knowledge, information, and start applying it. Because I can tell you guys, a lot of people are doing things wrong. And, I used to do things wrong. I went to being vegetarian, I was doing cardio, I was doing it consistently all the time. I was working out without a lot of sugar in my system, started losing muscle mass because I was overtraining. And, it's kind of a pain in the ass to, go through these things and, fall on my face a little bit. But when you fall, you also learn. So what I would suggest next is, it doesn't have to be through me, but, learn from people it's a W, want to not necessarily be like, but be similar to, like in a health manner, or, in just like a physique wise, let's say, right? Like, obviously be realistic. Don't yes, you can have those goals, but don't be like me, oh, I want to be just super huge, jacked out of my mind. You can get there over, the next few years, but what I'm saying is learn from those people you want to be similar to. So let's say I want to be more longevity, healthy. I might listen to some biohackers like Dave Asprey, Gary Brecka. And let's say I want to get jacked out of my mind. You can listen to more bodybuilding stuff, but over here we do the smart things. We don't just shoot to look huge and bigorexia. We shoot to, sure, look good, but prioritize our health, feel amazing, learn how to really understand how the body operates. So, if you want to be, similar to me, you want to learn, why I'm wearing this, why I'm wearing this, why I'm drinking this, why I'm, doing all these things, is because I'm not just shooting to, look a certain way. I'm also trying to, feel good, live longer, and, have zero health complications, right? So learn from people you want to be similar to is, your next step. You start getting momentum, you start trying new things out, you start applying information, trying it, testing it out. If it works for you, great. If it doesn't, okay, go back, learn something different, maybe something you did wrong, and, keep trying things out, because there's so many times, people just learn from, what people said, and then they just relay that information, but they never tested it for themselves. And everything that I've done, I've tested it, I've tried it, and I can tell you a lot of the things I have tried definitely showed results, definitely gave me, more vitality in my life. So honestly, great for that. But yeah, guys, this is very crucial, to follow, a structure of steps, because if you just start, let's say I just start working out, I skip, learning from people, I don't understand my why. Let's say I just make sustainable changes, I don't add any more workload, I'm not really gonna make progress, right? So it's about understanding your why, what fuels the fire, learning more information, and then, you're gaining confidence, so you start adding more workload, and then, in the beginning, you make that sustainable change. And, once you get to, learning from other people, you can start going back to here and adding more workload, right? You start adding more things, more protocols, like I mentioned. And from there, guys, it's what I really, fall into today, right, is just adapting to a long long-term lifestyle, right? And this is something I think is the most important because yes, you're gonna have, flows where you're, really trying to change your health around your physique, and that's great, kind of going full throttle. And then there's times where you kind of just want to be healthy and relax. And, this is what I say, like you're adapted now to a long-term lifestyle, right? So that for me means, let's say like I'm just walking, maybe I'm focused on stretching, focused just on, eating the right foods, maybe not as much carbohydrates because, the carbs are there mostly, maybe for a little bit of energy, but mostly to, help, the muscle look bigger and whatnot. So, just focus on a healthy, dynamic lifestyle is what it really comes down to, right? Like, okay, what kind of water am I drinking? Is the water I'm drinking healthy? Okay, am I showering in healthy water? Am I showering in tap water with full of chemicals, heavy metals, fluoride, pharmaceuticals, multiple other things that we can talk about in another video. But guys, like, adopting this lifestyle, I think that's what I meant to say here, but adopting this lifestyle is the biggest blessing, right? God gave us these bodies to have, 24/7, day in, day out. And, that's another huge reason for me why I take care of my body, is because this is one of the weapons, this is one of the tools that I get every single day to learn, to get better. So I might as well take care of it. And that alone is going to help me, on my health journey, even towards business, right? Be more productive, more, higher IQ, not so dumb, multiple things, right? But I think that's the biggest one for me, is just, you become adapted to a long-term lifestyle that doesn't just last, for the next year, right? 2027, but it lasts, 2028, 20, 30 something, 20, 40, 50, you teach your kids these principles, right? And it's honestly not a lot of information to learn. It's morally just adopting the lifestyle. And that's the biggest thing that stuck with me, even, when I'm on my health journey, right? Trying to get bigger, maybe leaner. Like at the end of the day, it's being healthy. It's understanding that it's not just about, vanity, but it's also about, like I mentioned, longevity for your family and just for overall health, well-being. But yeah, honestly, win 2026, guys. Like, it's in your hands. And to finish up this video, right, I kind of gave you guys a few steps, but now you're going to run into the mindset, problems, issues. And for me, like, mindset is by far the crucial thing, because there can be days where you don't want to do it. There can be, days in the gym where you get to the gym, you feel good, and then you start to feel like shit. That weight you were just pushing a week ago was feeling good. Now today it's heavy. You did a few reps, you're low breath because maybe, like, I'm not going to go into the health reasons, but maybe it's just a hard workout today and you could go home, you could quit, or, you could do an alternative if the workout's really hard, right? You could do some walking, stretching, do something else. But if you can push through it, but you're weak up here and you don't do it, it's like, what's the good of, me going to the gym just to half-ass it, right? Because I have a weak mindset. So it's another thing to strengthen your mindset as you go through this process. So, making those sustainable changes is what's going to help you gain confidence. You start to trust your word more. But, when it goes to your mindset, it's just a whole different kind of game, right? You got to be a strong person, man or woman, you got to be strong. Yeah, and there's periods and times where, we might not feel as strong, but those are the times where you're tested the most, and it really shows for it, right? But besides that, guys, you kind of just got to be a beast, and, depending on where you're at on your health journey, you can kind of go full throttle, like go, hard every single day, every other day, or you can kind of chill out for a little bit. But if you're watching this video, I'm guessing you're trying to make a big change in your life. So really focus on these rules right here. feel free to text me, message me if you got any questions. I'll get back to you as soon as possible. But yeah, this simple framework sounds very simple. You know, I'm not giving you a whole list, you know, to do, but this right here alone can really start to build the foundation for the years to come. And I'm telling you, this is exactly, you know, kind of the blueprint that worked for me, what I've done and what I'm continuing to do. So honestly, very blessed for that. But thank you guys for watching. This is one of my first videos, so, you know, better videos to come, but I hope you guys enjoyed and have a blessed beginning of your year. Take control of your life. You deserve it, but it all is up to you. So take care.